Hi, I'm Blake, and I kind of really like music and artists and whatever, and I'm kind of a really annoying nerd about it, and then people tell me to shut up, so I have no outlet for all this knowledge that I know. I mean, I do put it some places, but that combined with stupid school courses making me actually enjoy stupid writing and making me write like 5 pages for no reason, for no credit. I did show it to my English teacher though, so she could tell me it was good. So I've written, at this point, 3 little papers, little things about idkhow, the band I Don't Know How But They Found Me. And by that I mean, they're kind of mostly about Dallin Weeks, and there's some Brobeck stuff in there. And you can probably tell by the stuff in them. They're all recent, but you can tell like when I had done it. One of them is just after Infatuation was released, and one of them is just after the album was released. So, I just thought I would put this somewhere because I was like, why did I do this? Why did I spend so much time doing this? So, this is why. Let's talk about love, stalking, and murder. Dallin Weeks has written 3 songs about obsessive, stalkerish, and violent love, and more with references to the same idea. Most of these were written after his marriage, and they definitely seem to be rooted in fiction, so it made me wonder what about this specific allegory is so important. Let's start with the earliest one, Goodnight Socialite from Violet Things by the Brobecks. It starts with grievances, listing ways the narrator has been hurt, saying, "I've got your knife inside my back. I've got your rope around my neck. I feel the poison in my veins, corrode and eat away my brains." It then swiftly continues to tread into admonishments, blaming, scolding. "I've told you 15 dozen times, and that's 180 times. The way it's said is rooted in condescension, the way one might speak to a child. The narrator is infatuated with the subject, but is at the same time furious with them and sees them as less than human. Said infatuation is first mentioned in the chorus. If I can't have you, then no one can." It's a possessive love. It's sharp and violent. The phrase itself is the cliché line you hear in murder shows. It isn't specific and authentic to the relationship. We found out later that the relationship was never founded around personhood to begin with, the benefactor of the inheritance that I was after. The subject was nothing more than a benefactor, a means to a wanted end, that slowly got turned into the want. The next song's way of talking about the topic of violent, sickening obsession is probably my favorite, Mix Sinister by idkhow. The song was originally called Mr. Sinister before it was released, but was changed after an earlier song of his, Bleed Magic, was misinterpreted to be about drugging and raping a girl. It was actually about how the music industry exploits and takes advantage of artists. This frustrated him enough to put out a few statements talking about the real meaning, and for him to point out that they make a point to never specifically gender subjects in their work. This was coincidentally around the time that they came out about being gender nonconforming and not having a pronoun preference. Thus, the genderless Mix Sinister, attempting to prevent misinterpretations of the song that it's about date rape. Anyway, the song starts with detailing how the narrator follows the subject home every day, yet still feels invisible to them, which quickly draws back into possessiveness. "But I'll get you yet. I've got to make you mine." One interesting thing about this song is that there is never any explicit mentions of anger towards the subject, just desire. It's plans to try to get what they want, to prove their love and be noticed. There's a repeated line, "What will it take? What else should I do? How far must I go to prove that I love you?" Which could be read as sarcastic, but is instead sung as desperate and genuine, plotting. The narrator truly sees themselves as a romantic, even constantly repeating, "Just know I'm not the sinister type," either to reassure the subject or themselves. In contrast to the lack of anger, though, is a persistent presence of violence. Again, it's good-willed violence, fueled by delusion and obsession, not anger. "Oh, you never seem to notice that my heart beats for you, so I'll open you up and make yours beat for me too." Trying to fix their perceived invisibility, at the root of everything is the narrator's feelings of patheticness, trying to prove that they can be good, that they do really love the subject. Side note, I wrote that before learning about Hobbes' theory that aggression stems from insecurity. A regular philosophy, I guess. I'm taking a philosophy class. The last and most recent of these songs is their latest single, Infatuation. The other two songs look at the topic with two different perspectives: anger and dehumanization, and violent insecurity. Infatuation comes from a completely different, and in my opinion, more interesting perspective. It's self-aware. It's continually tinged with guilt. The narrator knows that what they're doing is divisive and wrong, but they can't help themselves. And something is wrong. This obscene occupation. What a drag to drag you down into infatuation. Even showing seemingly genuine remorse in the end of those lyrics. They know it's disgusting. You're my latest sick obsession. But dissociate from it, assumedly to make themselves feel better. Repeating again and again, need you now. And shifting away from the guilt when it's brought up to instead immediately turn to their love for the subject, justifying the actions, and shooting my brain, little shots of salvation. Continuing to this point, they even at one point say, and I've been listening too long to Lucifer, as if their actions aren't theirs. They're Lucifer's. It's at this point that I find it relevant to talk about the multiple religious references in the song. Weeks was raised Mormon and was even a missionary for the church, and they've said that some themes on this album are centered around religious trauma and guilt. So the remorse for talking too long to Lucifer is actually from guilt to the church, apologizing for a sin, not seeing the wrongs in what they've done to the actual person, and even by bringing the devil into it, they are shifting blame, saying that it wasn't their idea, the devil made them do it. The devil did not make them do it. The last interesting thing about this song, when it comes to the topic of violent and obsessive love, is that it's one of the most sexually toned songs/music videos they've released. Weeks has also said that love and lust and guilt about said lust are also themes in the album, so sexual themes were always a part of this song. In complaining about the press release for the single, Weeks said, it was supposed to say, on the surface, it's about romantic infatuation, but really it's about indulging in your own ego, to the point of neglecting reality, and the consequences that always follow. Instead, it pretty much just said, sex. Oh well? In my opinion, the way sexuality was used in the song is primarily utilized to continue the narrator's shifting of blame. It's not their fault, it's their uncontrollable desires. They're just not strong enough to always resist them. This brings me back to Freud's theory that the repression of the id for the superego will always lead to outbursts. Which even brings us back to the repeated line, I need you now. It's once again saying the subject is an innate need with a time pressure. They can only survive without them for so long. So, that's the end of the first paper I'm gonna read. I think it's really good. IMO. Okay, next paper. This one was originally just like an email to my English teacher, so if it seems a little personalized and a little un-essay-like, that's why. It's also about infatuation. Can you tell I really like that song? Infatuation by I Don't Know How But They Found Me is a super interesting song. The writer is in their 40s, which is part of what makes their work around love so interesting to me. It's not just the 20-something talking about first love like we've all heard a million times before. You're my latest sick obsession. It's a more mature and honest look at emotions that's still openly self-deprecating in lyrics like, what a drag to drag you down, and having generally quirky lyrical structure. Funny how practice can make people better at their craft. It also manages to touch on multiple complex topics within one song that has a repeating chorus, not common for the artist. From obsession to religious guilt to indulgences in one's ego, the use of symbolism and appropriation of outside media throughout their body of work is just prolific as well. The statement they gave about the single when it was released was, on the surface, it's about romantic infatuation, but really, it's about indulging in your own ego, to the point of neglecting reality, and the consequences that always follow. They've also spent most of their career as a bassist, meaning their songs subvert the tragically common inclination to simplify bass lines and view them as less important or capable than other instruments. In recent singles especially, bass has been at the forefront, and masterful and fun. It's so refreshing, especially as an off-board bass player. On the earlier point about 20-something first loves, they've also written a few of those in their 20-plus-year-long career, which, in my humble opinion, are some of the most honest, sincere, and romantic love songs ever. I recommend Love at First Sight from their earlier band, the Brobecks. They've been married for many years, and in that time have written both sappy true love ballads and reflections on long-term adult relationships. For this, I recommend Door. Okay, this next, last but not least one is I did actually write for class. I find a way to sneak this brain whatever into everything I do. So basically my history class, every quarter we write a short paper about a current event that has happened that relates to usually whatever we're studying in the class, but this one was opened up to be talking about any school subject you're learning. So of course I timed mine to be due right after the album came out, so I could be like, yeah, it's totally related to my dark lit class. It's totally related to my lit of love class. It kind of is. So anyway, this one's less about music specifically. I mean, it still is, but it's formatted as a current events report, and it focuses on a few more, like, concrete events in the timeline. I'm looking at you in Messom Whitgate. By the way, I spent, like, upwards of 6 months working on a video about that, like, I had the slideshow and everything. I was like, this is gonna be my next magnum opus. And then I was like, the more I learn, the more I don't know anything. And I feel like this isn't my place. So, ask someone else, I guess. In Dork Magazine's feature on idkhow, published February 28th, 2024, they look through the themes on the band's newest album and the symbolism used in its visual media. Gloom Division was released February 23rd, along with a music video for its last single, titled Downside. In said video, a character called a White Shadow appears for a frame. White shadows have appeared in the band's music videos and visual media before, specifically during the release process of their first album, Razzmatazz. When asked about the meaning of these reoccurring ominous figures, Dallin Weeks, the mind behind idkhow, said that they represent how the press has a tendency to pigeonhole him based on his past jobs and experiences. His past is always following him, in the background. When used in the recent music video, the White Shadow appears at a drum set, representing a drummer for that portion of the performance shot. I find this particular use of the figure really interesting because it's an evolution of its previous symbolism. Around a year ago, it came out that the former drummer and only other member of the band had stolen $26,000 from Weeks through a combination of fraud and embezzlement. It is important to note both that the drummer was never a writing member and that he didn't have a family, unlike Weeks, who has multiple children. Once this news was leaked against the involved party's will, a virtual circus erupted. Seeing as this is so shocking, especially considering that the two had been business partners for more than 15 years, since then, in nearly every one of the few interviews Weeks conducts, it has been brought up. All of this brings us back to the White Shadow. Weeks is using it to target new frustrations, to express anger at his perspective on the matter, which he has been unable to do explicitly for legal reasons. The choice of implementation of the White Shadow connects to my academic life, because I am taking Dark Lit for English this semester. In the class, we have been learning about various different philosophers' views on life, and how human nature and will affect it. One of these philosophers being Jung, who believes that life will always seek balance, and that when something is out of balance, it will make itself known. The imbalance cannot be ignored, instead it will simply be worsened. To me, the White Shadow in the music video is that manifestation of imbalance. It is a signal that things are amiss, even as the artist has been forced to ignore them. The imbalance rests in the media's handling of the situation, to avoid proportionate focus on idkhow's actual work and art. It rests in forced silence, and it rests in the trust lost with hurt gained. That's it. That's the last one. I hope you enjoyed. Also, I attempted to do my own highlights about a week or two ago, so, I think I went pretty alright, but everybody telling me it looks good. Everybody telling me I'm pretty. Thank you for caring about this. I'm always trying to weasel my way into minds to be like, guys, you should like this thing that I like. I can talk about it until you like it. I promise I can talk my way into it. So this was my attempt at that. Anyway, bye! Oh my god, I literally have no idea how I forgot to mention this in my idkhow video. But I have never seen them perform before. Like, I haven't been to any of the concerts from the previous tours. And not only did I get tickets for the show on March 29th, which sold out in pre-sale, by the way, so I got them in the little pre-sale window for like $20, but I got the VIP package, and I'm kind of losing my mind. Like, it's all I think about. Like, it's not that I'm putting so much pressure on it to be good, just like, I know it'll be good, you know? But I am freaking out over that. Just like, I want you to know that. I will probably make like a video after detailing my experience, you know, story time video. Anyway, bye for real.